Residential report writing and case studies. Chapter 7, Narrative appraisal reports. Page 5, Contents of narrative appraisal report. The form, format, and style appraisers use in their narrative appraisal reports will vary because there is no standard. USPAP does not provide or require a particular appraisal format for appraisers to follow. USPAP establishes minimum content requirements and states that the report must contain sufficient information so that the intended users can understand it properly. Regardless of what information you include in the narrative appraisal report, it is best practice to have a title page followed by a letter or of transmittal. The body of the appraisal report will follow the letter of transmittal. Depending upon your style, you can include some or all of the supporting information. For instance, maps, photographs, charts, graphs, artwork, statistical information, news articles, copies of other reports, etc. In context, within the body of the appraisal report, or you might place some or all of these items in an addendum to the appraisal report. Some appraisal organizations suggest actually developing, separating, and explaining the appraisal report as 4 different sections. Introduction, appraisal problem and scope of work, presentation of data, analysis and conclusion. Regardless of how you structure your appraisal report for writing purposes, it should flow logically, leading to the final opinion of value as its conclusion. It is not required that you formally divide the appraisal report into separate sections. But the flow of information and material is basically the same. The items that should appear in a narrative appraisal report are outlined on the next page in a suggested order in the form of a checklist that you can print out and use. End of page. Residential report writing case studies, chapter 7, narrative appraisal reports, page 6. Appraisal report item, checklist, and suggested order. Title page. Transmittal letter, cover letter. Table of contents. Appraisal summary or summary of salient facts. USPAP requirements. The appraisers signed certification in accordance with USPAP Standards Rule 2-3. Appraisal report type. Appraisal report or restricted appraisal report. Client/intended users, identified by name or type. Intended use of the report, for instance, for mortgage financing purposes or tax assessment appeal purposes. Identification/brief description of the property appraised. Real property interest appraised. For instance, was it fee simple? Was it leased fee, etc.? Type and definition of value. Cite the source of the definition. Statement of exposure time, if a component of the valuation definition. Effective date of the appraisal. Date of the report. The use of the real estate as of the effective date of value and the use of the real estate reflected in the appraisal report. Problem statement. For instance, the problem to be solved. Scope of work. Describe and explain. Explanation of any significant real property appraisal assistance provided. Highest and best use analysis can be included here or later. All extraordinary assumptions or hypothetical conditions, remembering to include a statement that their use might have affected assignment results. Property history. Describe. Confirm whether the property is currently listed for sale or not. Confirm if the property has been sold within the last 3 years, and if so, describe the impact of those sales or current listing on value. Location and surroundings. Macro description, micro description. Immediate neighborhood vicinity description, if not included in the micro section. Site/lot description. Improvements/building description. The 3 approaches to value. An explanation of what the sales comparison, cost, and income capitalization approaches to value are and why and how they are used by an appraiser in developing the opinion of value. This should explain the appraisal valuation process. This will address an additional USPAP requirement. A description of the information analyzed, the appraisal methods and techniques employed, the reasoning that supports the analysis, and opinions and conclusions are required by USPAP Standard 2-2, Roman numeral 8. If the use of one or more of the 3 approaches to value is not appropriate, explain the exclusions as well. This will address an additional USPAP requirement. The sales comparison approach. Additional USPAP requirements will be discussed. The cost approach. Additional USPAP requirements will be discussed. The income capitalization approach. Additional USPAP requirements will be discussed. Reconciliation of final value. Value conclusion and final opinion of value. Appraiser's signature. Addendum, not an exhaustive list. Some or all of these items also may be included in the body of the report. General assumptions and limiting conditions. Appraiser's professional resume. Maps, macro and micro of the subject location. Photographs. Subject, aerial. Subject's exterior and interior. Subject's neighborhood and surroundings, aerial. Comparables used in the sales comparison approach and clearly labeled. Comparable properties surveyed and used for rent. Comparison purposes in the income capitalization approach and clearly labeled. Meaningful statistics, for instance, population, news articles, economic data, internet searches, etc. Applicable zoning map. Applicable pages of the zoning ordinance. Appropriate FEMA flood zone map. Legal description of the site. Reduced site and building plans or sketches. Financial statements or information of major property tenants. Leases and/or lease summaries. When writing a narrative appraisal report, you can use this outline as a checklist to ensure that you at least consider the appropriateness of including every topic You may not find it necessary to include every item. Each item that you include need not be covered to the same extent. Some issues may be explained sufficiently in a paragraph or two, while others may require several pages. It's time for another brief quiz. End of page. Number 1. What are the 4 sections into which some appraisal organizations recommend separating a narrative appraisal report? A. Location and surroundings, property description, explanation of the 3 approaches to value, addendum. B. Use path requirements, location and surroundings, property description, addendum. C. Cover page, letter of transmittal, body of the report, addendum. Or D. Introduction, appraisal problem and scope of work, presentation of the data, analysis and conclusion. I'm going to go, God damn it, this is a hard one. I don't know. I'm going to go D. I really am just going to shoot fuck it in the air right here. Number 2. In which section of a narrative appraisal report do appraisers usually include general assumptions and limiting conditions? A. Addendum. B. Contents page. C. Cover, transmittal, letter. Or D. Value, conclusion, and final opinion of value. I'm going to go A. Addendum. True or false? Number 3. In a narrative appraisal report, each required content item must be covered in the same depth and detail. True or false? I'm going to go false because I think I just read that. Assessment completed. Finish. Whoa! Holy shit. You scored 100%. You needed 66%. Damn, son. So, with number 1, what are the 4 sections into which some appraisal organizations recommend separating a narrative appraisal report? You said introduction, appraisal problem and scope of work, presentation of the data, and analysis and conclusion, and that was correct. Good job. Number 2, in which section of a narrative appraisal report do appraisers usually include general assumptions and limiting conditions? You said the addendum, and that is correct. Good job. And number 3, true or false, in a narrative appraisal report, each required content item must be covered in the same depth and detail. You said false, and you answered correctly. Excellent.